Okay, thanks, Fraser. So Fraser asked me to talk about being bi. Occasionally. But yeah, it's funny little joke that Fraser didn't want me to tell, so I had to say it. Which of course means that we're trying to fund ourselves. How do you explain it? I think for us, it's our passion and our drive is the privilege of working with Bright Hope, the Bright Hope team and the partners. But we do all this other stuff back here to try and make that happen. So I guess it's a bit like Paul and tent making, because his passion was to spread the gospel, but he had to do these other things so that he could live, which is what we're trying to do. If you put the next slide up, which is actually nothing to do with anything really, it's just the thing that I found when I was looking for bits and pieces. It's got this big fat guy saying from the West, all you're interested in is development and getting rich, don't you care about the environment? So that's what I found when I googled sustainability. So, and you're supposed to have a funny thing in your show. I know my wife won't be laughing at it because she didn't think it was funny, but anyway, there it is. So being bivocational, if you can see that's a little picture of a baby in a sink with some dishes. Trying to do two things at once, do the dishes and also bath the baby. Which is sometimes what it kind of feels like to us. It's a bit of a mess. We can create a bit of a mess. So, as Fraser said, I remember at our last little gathering we had for the partnership facilitators, Fraser said that he was having a conversation with somebody else from an organisation who asked him, how do you keep your team together? And he said, well, we don't pay them anything, and we make them pay for all their own travel. And that's pretty much it. And this person's looking at Fraser like, what? How does that work? How can you possibly keep a team together when you're doing that? And yeah, that's a good question, isn't it? And often when we talk in the West, you hear all the things about affordability and budgets and being good stewards and things. And I think that's good, but I sometimes wonder when I look at the West versus the rest of the world, as if maybe you can just turn that a bit on its head and make it a bit selfish. And I think for myself, that's definitely an issue that I want to be very aware of, and in our culture as well, because, I don't know, I was reading some statistics about the world the other day, as you do, and I don't know if statistics are always true, but they said that if you have more than $30,000 worth of assets, so if you own a car or whatever it is worth $30,000, you're in the top 3% of the wealthy in the world. The top 3% if you have more than $30,000 worth of assets. So I mean, there's a big old world out there with a lot of people that have got pretty much nothing. And I have to admit that one of the issues we face with what we're doing with Bright Hope is it's not so much financial, but it's the emotional stuff of you go there and you see these people and their culture and they have very, very little. And then we come back here and it's kind of hard to see any of my problems, or even like I'll go to a home group at church and hear about problems that people have, and I find it quite hard to be empathetic with my problems sometimes too. And even though they are real problems, and we can't deny that they're not, but it's just, I'm just trying to say that sometimes it's hard for us to see it like that. So yeah, that's a bit part of being bivocational. A preacher, a guy, Tim Keller, that I like listening to quite a bit on YouTube, said, if you want to know where your heart is, he said, have a look at your check butts, but we don't do that anymore. So look at your bank statement and see where all your money's going and what you're spending all your hard-earned wealth on. So again, I'm not trying to say this is, I'm not trying to preach anything about it. I'm just saying this is us looking at ourselves and trying to think, okay, what am I doing with my life? I had a friend that came to Zambia last year, and I was actually hoping he was going to be here this weekend, but unfortunately he couldn't make it. And he's a very successful businessman. And he came into Zambia and he was looking at some of the projects we had in vacation and looking at the farming things, and I remember leaving there and I just heard this blubbing and sobbing in the back of the car. And this guy, and he spent the last 25 years building his little empire here in New Zealand. And I was like, what's wrong, mate? And his wife was with him as well. And he said, I've just completely wasted my life. You know? I've just done stuff for me. Which is not completely true, because he's a very generous man as well and does do a lot of things. But he just had this overall sense that, you know, what am I doing wasting my life? And I guess, again, it's something that I'm aware of in ourselves and all the guys, facilitators, is I guess we get that in our faces quite a lot because we see so much need and we're back here. So it's how we reconcile those sorts of things with what we're doing here in New Zealand, but also overseas. So, yeah. I often ask myself, why do I do this? And, well, obviously it's not for the money. But, you know, money's not the only thing that can be a reason that might not be a very good one. So I've got to check myself, and I think, like God, He looks at our hearts. And I think that's what I've got to continue to do myself as well, to say, why am I doing this? And I think that's the sustainable part about this, is if I can keep looking at my heart and saying, well, why am I doing this? What's my reasoning? And just check my heart against God's principles about what He's saying. That helps me to become more sustainable and carry on doing this work. So just a few things in the biblical view. I mean, what did Christ give for us? Did He tithe 10% for us? Or did He give everything on the cross? So, yeah. There's many warnings in the Bible about being rich and storing things up in this world. It can be dangerous. It's not that being rich is bad in itself, you know. It's not, but it can be dangerous for us, and I think we've got to keep checking. Like Luke 6:24, woe to you, rich, for you have already received your comfort. And I think it's reasonably fair to say in our culture, Western culture especially, that there's a God called comfort that everybody attains to, because that's what we want. We want comfort. We want to be as comfortable as we possibly can to get ourselves through this life. Luke 22:34, where your treasure is, there's your heart. So, you know, it's like the old bank statement thing. In Mark 25, the old rich man versus a camel. So we've got the camel going through the eye of a needle, and it's easier for that to happen than a rich man to get into heaven. So, yeah. I mean, and I guess this is looking at a point of view of material things, but richness isn't just about material things either. And I mean, I see in our partners, they have way more riches than us in terms of some of their culture and their ability to relate to each other and communities and things like that. An example of that is Judas again, in Charter. From Fraser and I was sitting down talking to him, and we said to him, you know, Judas, why do you do this? He used to have a successful tailoring business. And he's pretty much stopped that because he wants to teach people farming and get on his bicycle and go and visit 180 farmers 3 times a year. So that's, what's that, 440 or something visits, you know, on a bicycle to go and visit these guys. But he looked at us because we were like, well, why do you want to give up all that tailoring business just to do this? And he looks at us and says, well, as if we're quite stupid. Which, you know, he obviously must be looking at me, not Fraser, because Fraser's not stupid, as we've heard. And he said, you know, if I do my tailoring business, who's that going to benefit? It benefits me, but if I give myself for this farming program, it's going to benefit the whole community. So to him, it was a complete no-brainer. It's like, that's what I have to do, because the community is more important than just myself. So, I thought, and this is just off the top of my head, but I thought I'd just run down some things a lot of the guys in the bio team do, just in case you didn't know. This is us. We want to grow some raspberries. We've got a business called Nomo, which you can Google. That's selling ground cooking plants, and I'll do some accounts for some people as well. There's some lovely raspberries coming to you this way this summer. Policeman, management consultant, which brings me to another joke. Why doesn't a sustainability consultant look out the window in the morning? Because it gives them something to do in the afternoon. Otherwise he'd run out of his job. It's nothing to do with you, Fraser, of course.
None taken you.
Farmer, there's lawyers, accountants, airlines, Carl and Mark, and Tim's got a business marketing goods, which I recommend to you, by the way, because I had some things that I couldn't be bothered selling on Trade Me because I get sick of that stuff, so I gave them to Tim, and he sold them for way more than what I got for them, so if you've got any stuff you want to get rid of, go and see Tim. Hope that's a good plug for you, mate. Yeah. Property development with Jared and things that he's doing. So there's a raft of things that people are doing to try and earn a living here and earn an income here so that they can continue their passion, their vision with Bright Hope. So as I said, like God looks at the heart. He's got a magnifying glass in our hearts to see why we're doing what we're doing. And I think when I think about it and being sustainable, that's what I need to do, and I need to get with God and have His eyes about my heart and what it is what I'm doing. But you know, sometimes it's not easy. Like, to be honest, when we come out to a trip to go to Zambia, there's always a period where I look at my two little girls and Hayley and stuff and home, and I'm thinking about, oh man, you know, I should be doing this and this and this and the raspberries, and I'm going to go away for a month, and what's going to be like when I come back, and I think, I don't want to go with this. What am I doing? You know, there are times that happens, but often it's usually the night before that you get like that, and then you get on the plane, you go and visit these people over there that are giving their lives for their communities, and you get to interact with them, and it's just a privilege to hang out with them. And then by the time you get to come home, although you miss home, it's like, I wonder if I could come back over and live here again and, like, you know, get more involved with them. So, yeah. Oh, I just said that, didn't I? Yeah. That's one, guys. So if we stop doing what we're being called to do, for the sake of, well, I've got dollars there, but I mean, it could be a lot of other things, then where are our hearts in this? And it's obvious that God has called us to do all these things. It's just amazing how God seems to send the right people at the right time to do various bits and pieces. And, you know, we just consider it a privilege to be involved with this team and to see the partners overseas. So, yeah. The partners, I mean, they give up so much. You've heard of, again, Lon and Rosemary, who, you know, he could have been a very successful engineer in a big business, and he just went and lived in a village and taught people to grow crops, and he planted 30 churches. There's Judas, as I described before. There's all of these guys that are giving for their community and just giving up. And I just take my hats off to them, and we need to humble ourselves, because I learned so much off these guys. Like, they're just a blessing to us. And I think part of it is that when I look around our own culture and I see within myself that really what I want to do is be comfortable. You know, I remember one stage we were just about to give a training course, and another Foundations for Farming trainer who I won't mention, he's Dutch. I won't mention his name. He was there, and it's been a bit of a hard day and some stuff had been going on. We're sitting there trying to get things ready, and he said to me, "Oh, why are we doing this? Can't we just go and sit down and have a nice glass of red wine?" You know, and there's that comfort thing that we all look for, especially in this culture. And I guess we need to learn to be at peace with being uncomfortable about some stuff. And it's not that we are going to be uncomfortable, but we need to have God's grace to be at peace with that. So I'm just going to hand over to Hayley, who's going to share a few things, and then I'll finish.
Okay. No, I just thought I'd tell you about my perspective on things as well as Jerry's. For me, I'm a mum and I'm a gardener. Pretty much that's it. And then we have this bright hope stuff, and it's a balance. I help Jerry in the raspberries and with our plant nursery, and I have a gardening job, and you've probably seen our kids around, and so I've got them and managing all that. Yeah, it's a balance. I think a massive thing for us is that, us as a couple, is that we are actually pointing in the same direction. We both want to do this bright hope stuff. We, like I went on a trip to India and Kenya. Jerry looks after the girls and tries to get work done at home, you know, and he'll stay away for longer while I'm at home. Things like that, like we try and let each other do what we need to do. But because we're on the same page, that is so much easier. For me, my disposition would be to just stay at home in the garden. But God had other plans, and that has richly blessed me, actually. So it's hard for me to be away from home and go on these trips. And like Jerry was saying before any trip, it's like, why am I doing this? This is madness. Leaving my kids, leaving my family, da-da-da. Like Jerry said, once you're there, you know why you're doing it. And I do think that's a good question to explore your motives, and I will continue to ask myself that, why am I doing this? Is this for me, or is this actually what God is intending for me? So just a small story. While in India and Kenya, just about a month ago, again those same questions. Why am I doing this? Wouldn't it be easier just to be a normal mum who, I don't know, works normal hours and doesn't go away, goes on, I don't know, those questions. And, you know, a trip, while you're away and you're tired and emotional, that's not the point to make life-changing decisions. And so I had to put aside these questions, you know, deal with that later. But surprisingly, God had other plans. And we were at a church service with our friends and the other pastors of the church. And Pastor Ramondi gets up and he starts talking about Numbers 13 when they sent the spies into the Promised Land. And they came back and only Caleb and Joshua said, yeah, let's go. If God's with us, we can't fail, kind of thing. And man, the Holy Spirit spoke to my heart, and he answered my questions, and he gave me a calling, or reminded me of my calling. And yeah, that was surprising, but also a real blessing. And I realising that actually, yeah, I have a choice to either be like Caleb and Joshua and go, or to be like the others and not. And so I will go. If you're wondering what I chose. And it is quite difficult, it is quite hard, and it is quite lonely. You can feel like you're the only ones who are doing what you're doing. You're not. But when the Lord says go, we go. And to be available to that. And it's a balance. Something that I've found to make things easier is that I have to choose to be a part of each world. I have to choose to be here when I'm here and all that goes with it. And I have to choose to be wherever I am in Zambia, in wherever I go. And that's made it easier. Yeah. So, just to finish, I wouldn't necessarily recommend this kind of life. But it's not boring, and it's given me a richness and it's been a blessing. My motivation comes from a calling that I have not necessarily been able to always define, but it is a calling. I know it sounds cliche, I'm going to say it. It actually comes from the foundation of the gospel. It comes from Christ and working from that. And it comes from also the example, like you were saying, of our partners. And I might think my 2 weeks away are so hard, but that's nothing compared to their life sacrifice, and it's an incredible thing. But that's just my little perspective on things and being bivocational.
So just to finish off, has God ever let us down in the past? No. Even when it was hard, I remember times we were in Zambia and I guess because we're talking about us being bivocational and funding our stuff, and our biggest sponsor had to pull out. And I was thinking, holy moly, what do we do now? And, and then out of the blue, somebody just turns up with some cash, and I don't know how that happened. But God is faithful, but we are convinced that God is in this. He's in Bright Hope, He's in Foundation Farming, and we're just doing what He wants us to do. If He's not here, then I don't think weekends or this would happen, nothing would happen. So He is in this, and that's what gives us the motivation to carry on. So I just want you guys to pray for all of us, if you can. Keep Bright Hope our passion and our priority, while keeping a balance in life. And like for me, it's about saying, okay, because the work doesn't just happen for 2 weeks or a month while you're there. Of all the partnerships that I tell you, it happens all the time. You get constant emails and texts and things that are going on. And it's about dealing with those and keeping those the priority. Pray for us to be reminded the privilege it is to be partnering with the amazing people that God is using to transform the communities. To actively allow God to set your hearts about why we're doing what we're doing. And for peace about being uncomfortable about all this. So if you guys could do that for us, that would be really great. Thanks.